Well, hi, Jade. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and the industry that you're working in?
Yeah, cool. My name is Jade Murray. I work at Agora Cafe, so in the hospitality industry. I've been in the hospitality industry since about 2013.
Awesome.
Yeah, so almost coming up on my 10-year hospitality anniversary.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And tell me, what is your favorite color?
Pink.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Favorite...
since as long as I could remember.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. I like that.
Actually, it oscillates between black and pink, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
You can say both.
Yeah, both.
And what's your favorite food?
Oh, mac and cheese.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's so not fancy, but you just can't go wrong with a good mac and cheese. Yeah.
Partner would agree with you. Fantastic. And do you have any hobbies outside of work?
Yes, yeah, I have a few hobbies. I like to take my dog for a walk. I've got a little tiny dog about this big. And I also have my own freelance illustration business too.
Oh, fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
How do you find navigating your freelance work with your current role in hospitality?
That is a battle that's constantly changing. I think with freelance it kind of depends. Some weeks you have lots to do and then some there's nothing. So it kind of works well when I can be flexible with rostering and whatnot, so then I can sort of accommodate for the busier weeks.
How important is it to have a CV as a job seeker in your industry when applying for work?
That is a tricky one. With hospitality, it can be who you know in the business sometimes, especially if you're looking for a higher up role. If you're looking for an entry-level role, CV is very important, I think, just to find out more about your personality and also to see what kind of things you've done in the past and to see how those skills can be transferred.
So if someone sent you a CV that wasn't very clear when you read it, what would you do with it?
If it was unclear, to be honest, I probably wouldn't bother reading it. I think that, especially in a really fast-paced industry, you need something that's quick, concise, to the point, really easy to read.
So what do you look for in a CV? What kind of questions do you want to get answered when you're reading a CV?
So I have a mix of two things. So one being personality and two being either past experience or if you haven't had experience, if the kind of things that you like to do in your spare time can be translated. So if you're a very social person who likes to do very social things, I know immediately that the hospitality industry will be probably a lot more catered towards your personality type because it means being around people a lot. And yeah, it's just a very social industry.
So what are some things that you would recommend job seekers avoid putting in their CVs?
I think unnecessary detail. Although I do like to look for personality, I don't need to know what your grades were in school or things like that unless it's specifically the industry that you're looking at. So if you got really good marks in food prep and things like that at school, then that would be important. But unnecessary details, keep it short, concise. There's one other thing that people do so often, and it's bring in your CV in the middle of the lunch rush, and that is absolutely a hospitality no-no. You pretty much stay clear of hospitality businesses anytime that it's a breakfast or a lunch rush, because you're probably going to get your CV thrown out instantly.
Great tip. So what is the lunch rush hour?
The lunch would be 11:30 to 1:30. That would be the lunch rush, and then the breakfast is usually 8 till 10.
Right, so we'll avoid those times.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah. Awesome. In your industry, or for yourself personally, what is the purpose of a cover letter when you receive an application?
Typically, cover letter, again, shows a bit more of your personality, why you're interested in the job, why you're looking for a job. Could maybe take the opportunity to explain any gaps in your CV or things that might not meet the expectation of the employer and can kind of give you a chance to explain those. In hospitality, though, I don't know if they are the most important just because of that, again, that fast-paced, quick, concise. Oftentimes, especially if you're looking for kitchen work, the chef will just want to look straight away at what your credentials are.
If you requested a cover letter as part of your application and you never received one, what would that indicate for you?
A lack of detail, that you haven't actually read the requirements. So that could be a red flag if it means that you haven't really taken the time to read everything that we wanted.
Do you believe that a well-written cover letter would increase a job seeker's opportunity in the hospitality industry?
I think they're important in lots of industries, but hospitality, I don't think it's the most important thing.
What do you not want to see in a cover letter?
Probably a mistake that I have made myself, where you can tell it's copied and pasted from just a bunch of job applications you've done. And one time I even left the business name of the one I'd applied to previously, so it wasn't the current business I was applying for. And I think that I wouldn't have hired myself.
I love the honesty. Perfect, and that's very true. So Jade, tell me, what is the interview process normally like? How many people? How does it look like? Could you paint us a picture?
Yeah, for us specifically, we will have the boss of the whole venue, who is Craig. He's the pastor of the church that owns the building. So he will be there, as well as myself, who is the cafe manager. And if it's a job specific to a specific area, say for example barista, then our head barista would be in place of me.
So you're looking at roughly at least 3 people.
Yeah, about 2 to 3 people.
Lovely, thank you. And in your industry, when coming in for a job interview, how important is dress code?
Super important, absolutely vital. I think that with hospitality, you sort of have a unique dress code, which is smart and clean looking, but also you don't need to be suited up, because then we might think maybe this job is not appropriate for you if you're a bit more clean cut. Hospitality isn't the most cleanest and pristine industry to be in. So a little bit of a mix where you've got that comfortable, classic and clean look, but not too clean.
Do you believe that there's something as either talking too much or too little in a job interview?
I think if you're applying for a job that is very people focused, we are looking for how well you're reading that social situation. So if the employer is speaking a lot, then I would try and match that pace. And if it's very concise and short, then I would match that.
Beautiful answer, that's a great tip. So Jade, you're in a job interview with a candidate and you've noticed no eye contact. What does that indicate to you? What pops into mind first?
For me personally, the first thing that would pop to mind was probably a neurodivergence, especially with the eye contact. I think that it's really lovely to try and attempt to make eye contact as like a social cue to say that you're engaged in the conversation. But I also acknowledge that there are some people who can't do that. And I guess it depends on the role. So if you were looking for a role that was back of house, not people focused, I don't think it would put me off, especially if I knew that there was a neurodivergence. If it was front of house, however, I might think perhaps this isn't the right job for this person if social interactions are uncomfortable or too intimate for them.
And what would you think if you heard someone swear during an interview?
I think that if the person who is interviewing you has really colloquial language, again, I feel personally that it's okay to match that. If, however, you've been the first person to swear or bring sort of colloquial language, it would probably be, again, a red flag that you aren't reading the room properly, you aren't reading the social cues properly, and perhaps that you don't care a lot about the interview.
Jade, how important is honesty in the interview process?
Honesty is probably the most important thing in a job interview. I think at the end of the day, you don't want to get yourself into something that you aren't prepared for and that you are underskilled for. I think that you should always be honest, even if it means that you don't meet the exact requirements of the employer, because it means that they've got all the information that they need to make their decision.
In your organisation, when you are hiring someone to join your team, how important is finding the right person?
Lots of factors go into finding the right person. I think when you are hiring to replace someone, there can never be the perfect fit for who was before because everyone is so different. So I think it's important to have the right fit in terms of qualifications, but they don't need to be exactly the person that you had before because everyone brings their unique skills to the role. I think that it is really lovely to have someone that matches the humour, the culture, personality type of the team, but I also acknowledge that everybody brings something different.
And do you have any interview don'ts for us? Like, please don't do this in an interview. Anything that pops to mind?
I think that just in general, avoid winging it. Don't come underprepared for the interview. It always really stands out to me if someone's either read our website or looked at our social media and they kind of know what they're getting into. And come with questions as well.
So Jade, in your industry, what are some of the top health and safety tips you could give an individual who's never been in that industry before, whether it's personal or environmental?
I think in hospitality, it's really important to tidy up after yourself. It's probably the biggest one, is if anything hot or clunky is left in the way, that is a massive danger in hospitality. So making sure that you are constantly cautious of where you're putting things, even when you come in on your first day of work. Where should I put my jacket? Where should I put my bag? It kind of shows that you're cautious of your environment and you know that hospitality should be taken very seriously with where you put things, because usually there's a really set system of where everything should go.
And is there any kind of PPE gear or anything in that aspect that people should be aware of when joining the industry?
Yeah, I think come in with your hair tied back if you're starting a job in hospitality. You don't want to find hair in your food. So even say like my hair like this is probably a little bit too loose for hospo, nice and clean, pulled back. And also if you have any sensitivity to chemicals, you're going to be wanting to wear gloves. Most hospitality venues will have an apron that you can wear when you get there, so that you've got always a clean layer on your front.
And specifically shoes. What do people do with shoes?
Yes, so in hospitality you should always be wearing covered in shoes, fully covered, toes fully covered. Just think anything hot or heavy that could be dropped on it. You want to make sure that your feet are nice and safe.
So Jade, a little bit about you. What was your very first job?
So my first job was in an office, and I was hired just to shred paper, sort out receipts in date order, and do the office dishes.
I love that. How old were you?
I was 15.
And how long did you land up working there roughly?
I think it was about a year. It was an after-school job. I think the going rate was about $6 an hour when I worked there.
Champion. And do you remember what your first day at work at Agora Cafe was like in this new place, new environment? Run me through that.
It was terrible. On my first day, I wasn't used to the microwaves that they had. And so instead of heating something up for 30 seconds, I heated it for 30 minutes. And the fire alarms went off. We had to evacuate the building. I was really scared that I was going to lose my job, actually. And the manager at the time was just so forgiving and so kind. I think that there's always that kind of leniency towards new people that there are going to be mistakes and it's going to be okay.
I love that. And how do you feel now? I mean, how many years have you been at Agora Cafe? And if you compare day one to day now, what does that difference look like?
Absolutely. So I've been there for 3 years now, and it's gotten to the point where it does feel like second home. You get to hang out with your mates every day, especially if it's people that you've worked with for a few years. Yeah, you really get to build those bonds. Also just the comfort levels of the space, you know where everything is, and you can sort of put your fingerprint on the place a little bit more. So the longer you've been there, you can sort of make it more suited towards your personality type.
So Jade, tell me, what is your definition of a hard worker?
A hard worker is someone who's constantly looking at bettering themselves every day, constantly asking questions of how they can do things better.
So what kind of skills are required to be successful in the hospitality industry?
Quick thinking,
Yeah.
ability to solve problems, and you have to like people. Even in the kitchen, although it's not a very people-focused job, dealing with front of house and kitchen, can often butt heads, especially if you've got different goals. So in the kitchen, the goal is all about speed and consistency, whereas front of house is more about those people connections.
So Jade, tell me, what kind of experience would someone walk away with should they join the hospitality?
Hospitality makes you really good at setting boundaries, knowing what your capacity is because you're working in such high stress environments at times. You really figure out where kind of the dark shadows of your heart are and can really be confronting at times, figuring out the things that you're not so great at under that sort of pressure cooker. But it really helps you to lay down those good foundations of boundaries, obviously as well how to deal with people and how to make great food, hopefully, if it's a good venue.
That does sound like a deal.
Yeah.
So how valuable is work experience in the hospitality industry?
Work experience is really important if you're in the higher jobs such as chef or barista, the ones that require specific skills. If you're looking at an entry-level hospitality job, I think that probably personality and attitude is even more important than skills, because skills can be taught, but personality and attitude are a lot harder to teach.
So you mentioned the right attitude and personality. What kind of characteristics or attributes do come to mind when you think of the personality fit for this industry type?
I think in hospitality, one of the biggest attributes that's really important is consistency, knowing that you're going to be turning up to work every day, your attitude and energy levels are similar, you can really get the hang of structure and doing things the same all the time, because you want someone to come in, if they get a meal one day and they like it and they want to come in again, it should be the exact same the next time they come in. So showing that you can be really consistent is really important.
What advice would you give to job seekers today?
Be yourself. I think it's really important to turn up to a job interview or to apply for a job being your authentic self, because at the end of the day, you're also finding a business that suits you. You're giving up a lot of your life to work for a business, so I think that it should be a place that you like working at and that you can really align with their values. So I think when you go into an interview, instead of feeling nervous about, am I going to come across right, also go into it thinking, this is actually a two-way street. I need to look at if this is suitable for me.
Awesome, I love that. And thank you so much for taking the time today to come and
You're
meet with
welcome.
us and chat and share some insider knowledge for everybody who's willing to learn and absorb this for their future journey. So thank you, and I appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank
and
you.
Please extend it to the team.